Hello?
Hello, Hampstead 7899.
Yes.
Could I speak to Captain Lesgate?
Speaking. Hello?
Good evening. You don't know me. My name is Fisher. I understand you have a car for sale.
Yes, an American car.
Yes, I saw it at your garage. How much are you asking?
1100.
1100? I see. It certainly looks just the job for me. I don't like that price much.
I didn't like it when I bought it.
Now, when can we meet?
Well, now, how about tomorrow afternoon?
I'm afraid I can't manage that. And I'm going to Liverpool on Sunday. I was rather hoping... I say, you couldn't come to my flat tonight.
Where is it?
Maida Vale. I'd call on you, only I've twisted my knee rather badly.
I'm sorry. Well, what's your address?
61A Charrington Gardens.
Harrington?
No, Charrington. Turn left at the Underground. It's a 2-minute walk.
I'll be there in an hour.
That's extremely good of you. And by the way, will you bring the car?
I'm afraid I can't.
Doesn't matter. I had a good look at it. You might bring the registration book and any necessary papers.
Yes, of course.
I don't see why we can't sort this out here and now, provided you drop the price sufficiently.
Quite out of the question.
Well, we'll see what a couple of drinks can do. Well, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Mr. Fisher?
Captain Lesgate, do come in.
Thank you.
It's very good of you. Let me have your coat. Have any difficulty finding your way?
No, none at all.
Well, do sit down. How about a drink?
You know, I can't help but to think that I've seen you somewhere before.
You know, it's funny you should mention that. The moment I opened the door, Wait a minute. Lesgate? You're not Lesgate. Swan. CJ. Or was it CA?
CA? You've got a better memory than I do, Fisher. When did we meet?
Weren't you at Cambridge?
Yes.
Must be 20 years ago. You wouldn't remember me. I came in your last year.
Well, what a coincidence.
Yes, this calls for a special drink. I was planning to palm you off with an indifferent port, but let's see what we have here.
Perfect. By the way, how do you know that my car is for sale?
Your garage told me.
Odd. I don't remember mentioning it to them.
I stopped in for a fill-up and told them I wanted an American car, and they gave me your number. I say, it is for sale, isn't it?
Well, of course.
Good, but I refuse to discuss the price until you have at least 3 brandies.
I do warn you. I drive a hard bargain, drunk or sober.
So do I.
I think that I've seen you somewhere after we've left Cambridge.
Ever been to Wimbledon?
That's it. Wendes. Tony Wendes. What's all this about Fisher?
What's all this about Lesgate?
What's all this about Fisher?
What's all this about Lesgate?
What's all this about Fisher?
Well, what's all this about Lesgate? Would you like a cigar?
No thanks. I'll stick to my pipe.
That's one habit you've changed. I always remember at college you used to smoke rather expensive cigars. Wait a minute. I have a photo here. Ah, yes. Taken at a reunion dinner. There you are, with the biggest cigar in the business.
That's the first and last reunion that I ever went to. Huh. What a murderous thug I look.
Yes, you do, rather. Anyway, I always remember you because of the college ball. You were the treasurer, weren't you?
Honorary treasurer. I used to organize the beastly things.
Some of the ticket money was stolen, wasn't it?
That's right. Almost £100. I put it in my cash box in my study, and in the morning it had simply gone.
It was the college porter, of course.
Ah, yes. Poor old Alfred. He never could back a winner. They found the cash box in his back garden.
But not the money.
20 years ago.
What are you doing nowadays?
I deal in property. Do you still play tennis? I don't follow it much.
No, I've given it up. Or rather, tennis gave me up. One has to earn a living sometime. And I had a pretty good run for my money. Went round the world 3 times.
What are you doing now?
I sell sports equipment. It's not very lucrative, but gives me plenty of spare time.
I see you run a very comfortable house here.
Yes, my wife has some money of her own. Otherwise, I should hardly feel like blowing £1,000 on your car.
1,100. People don't realize how lucky they are with capital. I'm resigned to almost spend just what I earn.
You could always marry for money.
I suppose people do make a business out of that.
I know I did.
Why do you think she married you?
I was a tennis star.
But you don't play tennis anymore. She hasn't left you yet.
She nearly did. 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 After we were married, I played in the championships and took Margot with me. She didn't like it. And after we got back, she asked that I give up tennis and play husband instead. In the end, we compromised. I went to America for the grass court season and came back after the national championships. When I got back, I realized a lot had changed. For one thing, she wasn't in love with me anymore. There were phone calls that would end abruptly should I walk into the room. An old school friend who'd visit from time to time. One day we had a row. I wanted to play in a covered court tournament, and of course she didn't want me to. I was in the bedroom. The phone rang. It all sounded rather urgent, and after that she seemed rather keen that I play in the tournament after all. So I packed my kit into the car and drove off. I parked the car 2 streets away and walked back in my tracks. She left this house and took a taxi 10 minutes later. I took another. I followed her to his studio in Chelsea. I could see them through the studio window as he cooked spaghetti over a gas range. They didn't say much, just looked very natural together. You know, it's funny how you can tell when people are in love. I went for a walk. I began to wonder what would happen if she left me. I'd have to find some way to earn a living for a start. I suddenly realized how much I'd grown to depend on her. All these expensive tastes I'd acquired from years at the top. Now big tennis had finished with me, and so apparently had my wife. I can never remember being so scared. I dropped into a pub and had a couple of drinks. As I sat in the corner, I thought of all sorts of things. I thought of 3 different ways of killing him. I even thought of killing her. That seemed a far more sensible idea. And just as I was thinking of how I could do it, I suddenly saw something that completely changed my mind. I didn't go to that tournament after all. And when I got back, she was sitting exactly where you are now. I told her I was going to give up tennis and look after her instead.
Well,
It turns out I needn't have gotten so worked up after all. Turns out the spaghetti evening had been a sort of a fond farewell. The boyfriend had been called back to New York.
an American.
Yes. The long letters from there usually arrived on Thursdays. She burnt them all except one. That one she used to transfer from handbag to handbag. It was always with her. That letter became something of an obsession with me. I had to find out what was in it. Finally, I did. That letter made interesting reading.
Do you mean you stole it?
Yes. I even wrote her 2 anonymous notes offering to sell it back.
Why?
I was hoping it would make her come and tell me about him, but it didn't. So I kept the letter.
Why are you telling me all of this?
Because you're the only person I can trust. Anyway, that did it. Must have put the fear of God into them, because after that the letters stopped, and we lived happily ever after. You know, it's funny to think that just a year ago I sat in that nice bridge pub planning to murder her, and I would have done it too if I hadn't have seen something that completely changed my mind.
Well, what did you see?
I saw you. Would you like a cigar? I saw you.
And what's so odd about that?
The coincidence. See, a week before I'd been at a reunion dinner, and the fellows were talking about you. How you'd been court-martialed during the war, you're in prison. That was news. Mind you, at college we all said that Swan would end up in jail. That cash box, I suppose.
Well, what about it?
My dear fellow, everybody knew you took that money. Poor old Alfred. Poor old Alfred. Poor old Alfred.
Thank you very much for the drink. Interesting hearing about your matrimonial affairs. I take it you will be wanting that car after all.
Don't you want me to tell you why I brought you here?
Yes. I think you'd better.
It was when I saw you in the pub that it happened. Suddenly everything became quite clear. A few months earlier, Margot and I had made our wills. Short affairs, leaving everything we had to one another. Hers worked out at around £20,000. Investments mostly, all too easy to get at. They'd be bound to suspect me, so I needed an alibi. A very good one. Then I saw you. I wonder what happened to people who came out of prison, people like you. Would they get a job? Would old friends rally around? Suppose they ever had any friends. I became so curious that I decided to follow you. I followed you home that night and... I say, oh boy, would you mind passing me that glass? Thank you very much. I've been following you ever since.
Why?
I was hoping I might catch you doing something and be able to...
Blackmail me?
influence you. I got to know your routine and it became easier.
Rather dull work.
Yes, but you know how it is. You take up a hobby and the more you do it, the more fascinating it becomes. And you became rather fascinating to me. In fact, there were times when I felt like you almost belonged to me.
That must have been interesting.
You used to go dog racing twice a week. I took it up just to be near you. You changed your name to Adams.
Yes, I got bored with Swan. Any crime in that?
No, none whatever. In fact, there didn't seem to be anything illegal about you. Until one day you disappeared from your lodgings. I phoned your landlady, and I said, Mr. Adams owed me £5. But apparently that was nothing, because Mr. Adams owed her 6 weeks' rent in her best lodgings at £55. And Mr. Adams had been such a nice gentleman. That's what seemed to upset her most.
Yes. That always seems to upset them most.
I say, oh boy, if you want another drink, would you mind putting on these gloves? Now, where were we? Oh yes, I'd lost you. And then I found you again at the dog racing. I tailed you from there to your new lodgings in Belsize Park. There Mr. Adams became Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson left Belsize Park owing 16 weeks' rent and somewhat richer from a brief encounter with a Miss Wallace. You used to take Miss Wallace out Wednesdays and Sundays. She certainly was in love with you, wasn't she? I suppose she thought you were growing that handsome moustache to please her. Poor Miss Wallace. Poor Miss Wallace. Poor Miss Wallace.
This is all very interesting. Do go on.
July, August, September. Apartment 127, Carlisle Court. Occupant Mrs. Van Dorn. Her late husband left her 2 hotels and an apartment house furnished. What a base to operate from, Captain Lesgate. The only trouble is, she does enjoy being courted, and she is oh so expensive. It's no wonder you've been trying to sell her car for over a month.
Miss Van Dorn asked me to sell it for her.
I know. I called her before you arrived. She only wanted 800.
Where's the nearest police station?
Opposite the church, 2 minutes walk.
Suppose I go there now.
What would you tell them?
Everything.
Everything?
Everything.
All about Mr. Adams and Mr. Wilson?
I'll simply tell them that you were trying to blackmail me into
Into?
murdering your wife.
Oh, I almost wish you would. When she heard that, we'd have the laugh of our lives.
Aren't you forgetting something?
Am I?
You've told me quite a lot tonight.
What of it?
Suppose I tell them how you followed them to that studio in Chelsea. Watched them cooking spaghetti and all that rubbish. Does that ring a bell?
It would. They'd assume you'd followed her.
Why should I?
Why should you steal her handbag? Why should you write her those blackmail notes? Could you prove you didn't? You certainly can't prove that I did. It'd be a straight case of your word against mine.
That would puzzle them, wouldn't it? What could you say?
I should say that you came here tonight half drunk and tried to borrow money on the strength that we were at college together. When I refused, you mentioned something about a letter belonging to my wife. As far as I could make out, you were trying to sell it to me. So I gave you what money I had, and you gave me the letter. It has your fingerprints on it. Remember? Then you said if I went to the police, you'd make up some story about me wanting you to murder my wife. Before you go any further, old boy, do consider the inconvenience. You see, I'm quite well known, and there'd be pictures of you as well. And sooner or later, there'd be a deputation of landladies and lodgers coming forward to testify to your character. And someone is almost certain to have seen you with Miss Wallace. I noticed you were very careful not to be seen with her. You used to take her to out-of-the-way places, like that little tea shop in Pimlico.
That was her idea. Not mine.
Yes, it was a tad shabby, wasn't it? Hardly the place to take Mrs. Van Dorn. By the way, does Mrs. Van Dorn know about Mr. Adams and Mr. Wilson and Miss Wallace? You were planning to marry Mrs. Van Dorn, weren't you?
Smart, aren't you?
No, not really. I just had time to think things through. Put myself in your position. That's why I know you're going to agree.
What makes you think I'll agree?
For the same reason that a donkey with a stick behind and a carrot in front always moves forwards, not backwards.
Tell me more about this carrot.
1,000 pounds in cash.
For a murder?
For a few minutes' work, that's all. No risk, I guarantee it. And you should like that. You've been skating on very thin ice recently.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You ought to know. It was in the papers. Middle-aged woman dies from overdose of something. They have no idea where she got the stuff, but we know, don't we? Poor Miss Wallace. Poor Miss Wallace. Poor Miss Wallace.
This 1,000 pounds. Where is it?
In a small attaché case in a check room.
Where?
Somewhere in London. Of course, we don't meet again. Once you've delivered the goods, I shall mail you the check room ticket and the key to the case. Here's £100 on account.
The police would only have to trace one of these notes back to you. And they would hang us both from the same rope.
They won't. For a whole year, I've been cashing an extra £20 a week, always in fivers. And I exchange them for these at my leisure.
Might I see your bank statement?
By all means. Don't touch.
Turn back a page. Your balance has dropped by over £1,000 during the year. Suppose the police ask you about that.
I go dog racing twice a week.
They'll check your bookmaker.
Like you, I always bet on the tote. Satisfied?
When would this take place?
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow? Not a chance! I've got to think this over.
It has to be tomorrow. I've arranged things that way.
Where?
Approximately where you're standing now. Tomorrow night, Halliday, the American boyfriend, and I shall go to a stag party. She'll stay here, and she'll go to bed early and listen to theatre on the radio. She always does that when I'm out. It's exactly 3 minutes to 11. Enter via the street door, and you'll find the key to this door under the stair carpet here.
The fifth step.
That's the one. Now go straight to the window and hide behind the curtains. I shall go to the telephone in the hotel, and at precisely 11 o'clock, call my boss. Except I won't call him. I will dial the wrong number. This number instead. This number. You'll see the light come through under the bedroom door. When she opens the door, the light will stream across the room. Now whatever you do, don't move. She'll come to answer the phone, and then you'll take care of it. Once you're done, pick up the phone and give me a soft whistle. Don't say a word. When I hear the whistle, I shall hang up and call my boss as if nothing had happened, and then return to the party.
What happens next? Go on.
This suitcase here contains clothes of mine for the cleaners. Tip the clothes out on the floor, and fill it up with a cigarette box and some of those cups over there. And then close the lid, but leave the snaps unlocked. And leave it right here, just as it is now.
As if I'd left in a hurry.
That's the idea. Now the window. If it's locked, unlock it, and leave it open. And then go out the way you came.
By this door.
Yes, and this is the most important thing. You should leave the key in exactly the place you found it.
Under the stair carpet?
Yes.
And then what is supposed to have happened?
Well, they'll assume you came in by the window. You thought the apartment was empty, and so you went to work. She heard something. You saw the light come on under her door, and you hid behind the curtain. You attacked her, and when you realized you'd murdered her, you fled through the window and bolted through the garden and left the loot behind.
Just a minute. I'm supposed to have come through these windows. Suppose they've been locked.
It wouldn't matter. She often goes for a walk before bed and usually leaves the windows unlocked when she comes back.
Yes, but what if she says...
But she isn't going to say anything. Is she?
Alright. I leave the apartment. I put the key back under the stair carpet. And I go out the street door. Suppose the street door is locked though. How do I even get in?
The street door is never locked.
When will you get back?
Around 12. I shall bring Halliday back for a nightcap, and we shall find her together. We'll have been together ever since we left, and there's my alibi.
You've forgotten something.
What?
When you come back with, what's his name, Halliday, how will you get in?
I'll let myself in.
Your key will be under the stair carpet. He'll see you grab it. You'll give the whole show away.
It will be her key under the stair carpet. I shall take it from her handbag before we leave. She's not going out, so she won't miss it. And then when we get back, I'll let myself in with my key. And then while Halliday is outside searching the garden or something, I will return the key to her handbag before the police arrive.
How many keys are to this door?
Just hers and mine. Maid of Ale 3499.
Tony, it's me.
Hello, darling. How's it going?
Wonderfully. It's really a special play.
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm glad.
You will join us, won't you?
I don't think so. I hardly seem to have started. Darling, just a minute. I think there's someone at the door. You can be seen from the bedroom window. Sorry, darling. False alarm. Look, why don't you take Mark to Jerry's?
How do we get in?
Well, just mention my name. I don't know about the band, but the food's good. By the way, Maureen called after you left and wants us for dinner on Wednesday. You've got something in your diary, and I can't read it. Looks like Al Bentall. Who's he? Another one of your boyfriends?
Oh, Albert Hall, you idiot.
Oh, the Albert Hall, of course. I'm so glad we don't have to go to Maureen's. She's such a filthy cook.
Well, there's the bell. I must fly.
All right, dear. Enjoy yourself.
What's all this about Fisher?
What's all this about Lesgate?
What's all this about Fisher?
What's all this about Lesgate?
What's all this about Fisher?
Well, what's all this about Lesgate?
What's all this about Fisher?
What's all this about Lesgate?
What's all this about Fisher?
What's all this about Lesgate?
What's all this about Fisher?
Well, what's all this about Lesgate?